I was thinking about how even though we agree on a reality and we call it the same, I mean, everyone says this is what's real because we agree on certain things. The actual perception of it's vastly different,
Mm-hmm.
and even though we think we're living in the same reality, we're not really, and it's probably more different
Because
than
there's
it
a
is
lot
the
of
same.
similarities, but yet it almost like the physical body. Like our physical body, we all have this shell. We all have like arms and legs, let's say organs to an extent, but yet there are all these unique differences that makes everybody different. So
Yes,
we can
absolutely.
have like the perception of reality, there's like the shell, but yet everybody has a different piece of it that
Right,
makes them
otherwise
different and
we-
unique.
Otherwise, we'd just be all the same robots.
Uh-huh.
You know.
So the thought that came to me when I was driving that I thought was really interesting was, when I've done the channeling, the definition of God that they've given me is self-actualizing, limitless potential. And they say that we're the self-actualizing part, that God and the divine's the limitless potential. We're the self-actualizing part. So-
Meaning what? We work together to create.
So we're the one that's pulling from the infinite possibilities and making it
A
into
reality.
a creation, making it into something real.
Gotcha.
And so what I thought was interesting about that when I was thinking about this concept was you need, for the full perception of Joe, you need Joe's perception of himself, but you need everyone else's perception of Joe as well, because everyone's going to see a different aspect of that. And the divine is the whole of it. So you're going to perceive yourself one way. I'm going to perceive you differently. Gladys is going to perceive you differently. Somebody that doesn't like you is going to perceive you differently. And all of that's needed for the complete picture of everything that Joe can be, all the possibilities that Joe can be.
Interesting.
So I thought
For
it was
them,
really,
not necessarily, not for
And
me.
for you too, because
but
that
not talking
projects
about for
energy.
you, but for the divine, for the actualization of everything that,
Right.
all the limitless possibilities that Joe can be.
Right.
It takes the cooperative components.
Collective.
Yeah.
It takes the collective and all their thoughts and vibrations and
Perceptions.
perceptions.
It doesn't define you, but it brings out that aspect of you to be actualized in reality in a physical way.
Okay.
Well, because
Outside
even
your
Joe,
perception, it doesn't have to be your
Right,
perception
okay.
because consciousness is a grander perception.
Because
Okay.
even Joe saying something when he speaks, everybody's going to take it differently and make an impression of who he is based on their own perceptions.
Yeah, based on their judgments of, tall
Right or
people,
wrong, or,
of
yeah.
mediums, of,
Right. Okay.
And I wonder if that collective can actually distort our perception of ourselves. Like, can one lose themselves in the perceptions of? And I wonder if people,
I think that's what most of the world is, I think.
and I wonder
honestly.
if people like us who are more, like we're around more people, we're out there publicly around more people, if that defines public people even more so. I mean, I never thought of it, but I'm wondering if that
I think that,
bends and shifts.
so I think one of the reasons you see a lot of celebrities crash and burn is because there's so much perception out there that there's momentum going in both ways for them. There's momentum of positive and negative, and all it takes for them is to put themselves in a place where they're not
They can't
in their
control it,
highest
right.
thought. Yeah, their vibrations in that lower place, and they can tap into all that momentum of people that think negatively of them.
Right.
And once you tap into that, it's easy to crash real quick.
Especially if they're sensitive and they're picking
Yeah.
up all the
And
different
most of
types of
them are.
energy.
Yep.
I was going to say like actors or actresses or anything like that. And people that are more sensitive can pick up different energy patterns, so that in themselves could create that, ability to just start to take on that negative perception.
Yep.
While some people might just kind of be like not as sensitive and it doesn't bother them as much.
And it's all unconscious until you become conscious of it. So
Yeah.
this last year,
You can
I feel
manifest
like I've been struggling to find myself. Like, well, who am I? Outside of sister, aunt, friend, girlfriend, daughter, like outside of that. Because again, the bigger you get or the more well-known, the more you can get caught up in what other people's expectations are.
Mhm.
That's why
Yeah.
when you joke and say fun Gladys,
Mhm.
because the perception is I'm wholesome and, angelic, but yet I have this fun
Wild
side.
side.
Yes,
But
I do.
But we know the truth because we hear the stories.
That's it. And we will tell you for cash.
opening up people's laundry dryers. But that's the thing. It's like at some point, unconsciously, you live up to an expectation that's projected without realizing it until you crash. But then again, internalizing it on your own, like I did something wrong, or I messed up, or I can't figure it out. And I think there's a lot of sensitive people out there who are in that space. I think this is why addiction is so high, and depression, and isolation.
And I think what we can do, and other people can do, but we try to do is when we look at other people, not put them, have a perception of them that's positive or negative, just who they are, who they want to be. So they can't use our energy to fall into that negative pattern.
But don't you think like every time we meet somebody, we have an expectation of what we want them to be?
Well, I think absolutely most people do. And that's usually the biggest downfall you have is you don't actually see the person for who they are.
Yeah.
You see them for the expectation that you have.
Well, my friend and I were having that conversation with dating and going out and dating people and how we can easily get that expectation and stuff. And she said, you know what? I want to go out and date guys and just get to know them, like know who they are. But she finds it's more difficult because it's easy to go there with the expectations or the thoughts. It's just so lightning. But again, when you go to a show, like when people go to the Long Island Medium, they'll say, oh, she was great, or oh, she wasn't that great. But their perception going into it, but she's still who she is.
Exactly.
I think it works when we talked about expectations. We set up these expectations. It's similar to setting up perceptions.
Yeah,
they work together.
It'd be like someone going on a date with you, and they expect you to be wholesome, and then Fun Gladys shows up.
Yeah,
and then
you're on the table, with singing on the table with
I had a fun night the other night.
See?
I had a fun night the other night.
We'll save that for the after hours.
Yeah, tell our viewers.
I had a fun night the other night. I just drank too much. And again, that's falling into that trap. Like, really? I haven't done that in a long time, but again, it's that perception like, this isn't all that I do. This isn't my work. And the beautiful thing is I've created different groups of people around me. So when I go out with those friends, I'm not Gladys the intuitive, Gladys the spiritual. I'm Gladys in how they know me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And obviously it's not all partying. Although my text to my friend the next morning was like, we drink too much. And she goes, and that's new? But I kind of laugh because that's a part, but it's fun. We're not out every night or whatever. But it's a part of us.
Everyone that's watching this is judging.
I know.
The perceptions of you are like.
But like I said, we have fun. Like we go out, we have a good time. We're just happy. We laugh, we have joy, we do crazy things. But that's the interesting thing because again, the perception of what if a client or somebody sees me out.
But people usually don't want to. They don't want to see somebody as a whole. They want to see them as
what they want you
what
to be.
Their definition should be. Yeah. So like, I need my spiritual teacher to be, quiet and fun and speak with a high voice when she does her readings and all that stuff that you talked about earlier. And then they say like, oh my gosh, like that. Not in your case, but like someone like, oh my God, this spiritual teacher who got a divorce, or they did this. Like, they must not be as evolved as I thought. And it's like, well, they were always human. You're the one that said they weren't.
Right. And I think that's a huge thing because, we're having, we're spiritual beings having a human existence, so we can't forget to be human. There has to be a balance.
Yes.
Exactly.
So, but some people look at us, if you're into doing, certain, careers and stuff like that, people look up to people. It's like, this is who you're supposed to be. If they see you doing something else
that's not under that,
right, they can really, they'll actually say something to you sometimes. You can be like, oh, you're so spiritual and stuff like that, but you like this baseball team or you like this football team, and they start arguing with you and stuff, and it's like, we're just being human. You know what I mean? But they don't, they won't accept that.
By doing that, don't you think it's an energetic
projection?
Attack in a way? Meaning like, I want you to be who I want you to be. So because you know how people, especially with mediums and readers, they say you shouldn't charge for that, or beware of card readers, or things like that. And it's like, well, wait a minute. But I've learned that that's a projection of their beliefs,
their perception,
and their stuff.
Yeah.
Right. They take their perception of a group of people and they project it on everyone that falls in that group. It's like saying all the priests are pedophiles. And it's not, obviously it's not true.
Yeah.
It's a stereotype.
it's a stereotype,
It's no
so-
different than racism or anything
Yeah.
else. It's
That's
just
right.
applied in a different way.
So perception can be could be a stereotype, right?
Yeah, that's usually what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
I think for
For
a
the
lot
group.
of
Or an expectation of what they want you to be. Because again, it all comes down to comfort.
Yeah.
Right? If you stay within these boundaries, which this goes back to ancient religion,
Yeah.
if you stay within these boundaries, then I can cope
Yeah.
and I can deal and I can control.
because for some reason they think it's your job to make them happy. And that's the biggest problem people have is they project outward and need the outside world to make them happy. But the problem is they get caught in a negative feedback loop where they don't feel happy, so they say, you need to make me happy. But because they don't feel happy, you can't make them happy.
Do you think they feel
Then they see you not making them happy,
Yeah.
then they get angry at you, and now they're more unhappy, and it becomes this negative feedback loop that
Do you think that
spirals.
they're just some people just confused? I mean, they want everything to be like, all right, you're the school teacher, you're the nurse, you're the doctor, you're the
Well,
undertaker.
that's how
and-
they cope.
and that's how they cope, right?
And, can
And I think
control
when they
their
see
emotions.
when they see them taking on different roles, then they get confused. With confusion comes anxiety, fear,
Feeling out of control.
fear,
Yeah.
and then the next thing you know, it's anger.
Yeah. And I think one of the best things when I took art classes as a kid, my art teacher used to always say, draw what you see, not what you think you see. I just love the application of that to all of this because it's like, you think you see the world one way, but it just really isn't like that.
Yeah.
Like when you go to draw a face, people tend to draw the same eyes and the same nose on everybody, but they look completely different because no one's seeing that. They're seeing this ideal
So
shape
seeing
of what they
beyond
want.
what-
A model,
Yeah.
And
And that's part of the way the brain works. The brain categorizes and says, that's a nose, these are eyes, that's grass, that's a tree.
right.
So,
But if you look closer, everybody's nose is different.
Well, that's a
Everything's
great
different.
analogy,
Everybody's
like doing
eyes-
artwork.
Yeah.
Exactly. When I started doing drawing and things, my clairvoyance really took a step up because when I was drawing and I was learning perception and stuff like that, I had to look at small details.
Yeah.
Because like you say, you look at grass, most people say, oh, it's green. And my mom would be like, no, look at it again. It's not green. It's like 30 shades of green, some yellow in there.
Exactly.
You have shadows
Browns,
and
yeah.
all this stuff goes same thing with snow, paint snow. I'm like, well, it's just white. She goes, no, it's not white. Look at it. There's grays, dark blues, the shadows. And so when I started learning that, my mediumship got much better because I could see much better clairvoyantly.
Yeah.
But it's just because she shifted my perception away from
Well, she just kind of
What-
expanded it.
she expanded it.
Yeah.
What was available,
Yeah.
as opposed to me just like grass is green, snow is white, sky is blue, and that's it.
Yeah.
So that's all. That's what a good
instead
teacher
of,
does.
instead of drawing with a box of crayons, now you've got paint that you can mix and create all these different colors.
Right, and a good teacher will do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we could be good
As
teachers.
spiritual teachers,
We could help
we're
people.
kind of expanding people's perception of like what they think they know.
Right.
And that's why I love that concept that every perception of you is needed to create the whole picture in God or in consciousness. So the great thing about that is the person that sees you in a negative light, you don't need to take that in. You don't need to own that. But you can say, oh, I understand.
Where they're coming
I
from.
understand how that makes the whole picture for God. Okay, that's cool.
And I think it's our job too, and other people's job, to point out that you can change your perception. Like you said, you could
Yeah.
open it up
Exactly.
and accept that. And I think if more people do that, there might be less trauma in their lives and certain less trauma projected on other people.
I think that's what good spiritual teachers do. They're always learning and always expanding on what they know
Yeah.
and growing from that space.
And challenge you
Open.
always, and you
Yeah.
always
And
want
they're
to
open to learn.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and you always want to challenge people to think outside the box. Like the biggest thing when I do my channel classes is I always say, give me that piece of information that makes me a little uncomfortable because the truth lies beyond that. You know what I mean? I know that if I just, re-channel the same things I've heard because that's comfortable, that I'm not going to get to that next step that I want to. So I want to hear the stuff that when I hear it, I say, oh, I don't know about that. To me, that's like, all right, now I'm making that real connection because I'm going beyond my boundaries of what I perceived and I'm expanding that awareness.
I think that's a huge thing with racism,
Oh, absolutely.
or different economic levels of income and stuff like that.
Gender, all of it.
Gender, absolutely.
religions.
And
all.
Yeah.
it can be so powerful when other ones keep projecting onto that. You know, the scale is not, can go one way, and then it takes a lot of people really to teach people to be more open and
But it
open up
really can
perception to
only
balance
be
it.
to a degree. You know what I mean? Like if you have extreme differences in people, like even male and female, the male can get in touch with the female and understand, but you really don't know. You don't even have the physical body to even understand.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think we, as a society, too, have to get to that place where there are just points where you're not going to know, and that's okay too. You can be compassionate and understand.
Yeah.
But don't go to that place like where you think you know, or that perception of like I get it.
You can never share the same perception as someone. So no matter what you're going through, anytime someone comes up to you and says, "I know what you're going through," you say, "No, you know what you went through."
Yes.
It can never be the same. It can be similar. There can be, again, points that you can agree on that are similar, but that's it.
Yeah.
You know, that there's points that you're saying, you know, breakup. Well, I label that as breakup. I label this as breakup. Okay, that's the same. You know, I cried, you
Grief.
cried. Okay, that's the same.
Grief is huge.
Yeah.
But it's different. It's so different for everybody.
Oh, I know that.
And that's why there's no one solution to any problem, because every problem is actually different.
And this is why we have the root of so many arguments in politics and religion, to name two right off the bat, is like you're trying to fight for people to be on your side or believe what you believe, but yet everybody's upbringing is different. Everybody's experience is different in all aspects. So I was saying to somebody the other day, I was like, just if people would just, and I said this I say this in the most endearing way. I said, if people would just mind their business and do them, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, just show up and be who you are.
Yep.
Mind your business and what this one's doing and what they should be doing and shouldn't be doing, and just be a human.
And if you can do that, that's so freeing, because you release the expectations.
And that changes the consciousness. It changes the vibration instead of fighting. But I need to know because I need to fight for this and I need to this. Well, no, if you shift this, it changes the vibration.
Yeah.
And will shift naturally.
I forgot where I heard it, but
we're in this fighter energy, right? Because the perception is I have to fight in order to make change, or I have to fight for this so I don't lose my beliefs or whatever. And I think so many people have just gotten caught up in that, which law of attraction escalates it, right?
I forgot where I heard it. Somebody was saying that once you can learn to not need the love of your parents, you've merely made, like, I forgot how they said it. It was so good. I don't remember who said it.
Well, I read it was like a relationships problem. You don't have relationship problems. You have unresolved childhood issues. That was what, like, the quote that I read. And it's like, yeah, it goes back to your parents.
Yeah, but just the idea, like, once you don't need them to love you because of your parents, like, once you don't need those people that at one point you did depend on for stuff.
Or you didn't get from.
But
wanting to.
Once that's gone, it's like now you're free to see your parents as who they really are, to see the rest of the world, to not need from anybody, to be whole yourself, and then just allow others to be who they are, and don't make one person responsible for all your happiness, all your joy, all your this or that. You know?
Joel Osteen says that all the time. Like, your spouse or partner has 80% maybe of what you need. You'll never find somebody who has 100% because you have your own needs, and you have to develop that, and that's something that somebody else will never be able to fill. So a lot of people go from relationship to relationship, whether it's friendships, whether it's jobs, whether it's significant others, seeking for that missing piece when it's really
but they don't want to look inside.
Right. I mean, if they expanded, they'd realize maybe that missing piece isn't missing.
Yeah, it's not missing. You just can't see it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the car keys that you can't find that are sitting on the
Because
table
you're
right in
in
front of you.
crisis mode. Yeah.
So law of
Hysterical
attraction means
blindness.
you won't.
They call it hysterical blindness.
Yep.
Like, I'm late, I can't find my keys, I need to go, blah, 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 and people just lose that. I think a lot of people are living in that. I mean, I think we all dip in and out of it,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
And I think that's why meditation and things like that help so much, because you become aware of what's on your mind, you're stopping.
I think, if people become less judgmental, and I mean, I know that sounds like a simple term, but when you start judging to a certain extent, that's projection of, you know, your perception, and you're fighting with yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's a lot of wasted energy. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I try not to be judgmental. It's because that let them do what they want. That's their gig. You know, like you said,
Mind your business.
my business, why do I care as long as they're not harming me?
Or even mind my business. If I mind my own business and harness all the gifts, the talents, everything that I've come here to learn and do and expand on and focus on that, and everybody did that, creator energy, because I really think the divine feminine is creator energy, and not so much that masculine of action, right? The action like forcing, making things happen. That's the extreme part of it. But I think if we all just, again, brought our attention here and saying, okay, what am I here for?
But even that's
what am I supposed to be creating?
a perception, because in divine spirit there is no masculine or feminine. Once you,
Right.
that's a concept. That's the duality but
Right.
in reality, there is no one or the other. So I think that it's just God creator energy, and then men and women tend to tap into it differently, so we label it masculine and feminine.
Well, and I think that's why so many of us are learning the balance in between us. Because remember, like in our parents' generation and grandparents, it was like the masculine energy was the provider, the feminine energy was the nurturer.
Yep.
We've gotten so away from that. We're harnessing it both within. So for me, I see action and freedom. We need to take action in order to have freedom. For me, that's what I use as masculine, feminine, right? And it's cohesive. Like you need one for the other. Like it's not good or bad, but I think we're all learning to harness that.
And people are afraid of that.
Oh yeah.
They're afraid of that balance, the masculine and the feminine. They feel like they're
Within.
going to lose control. And that within, and then it's projected in society.
And I think what people feel on an unconscious level is the fact that when you move out of that place of fear, that part of you is dying. You're not the same person anymore. You're a person who's probably happier, more successful in all the things that you want to be. But in a sense, it is a death, because those things that you've defined yourself as are no longer a part of you. So you leave that behind, and you're, in a sense, born again. You're this new person. Hi, everybody. If you like what you watched, please subscribe on YouTube and like us on Facebook. And check out our website at alwaysconsiderthesource.com.
Hey, if you want us to come out to your location and do a live setup, we'd love to do that. Continue to send in your questions, and we look forward to interacting with you.
And remember, always consider the source.